Okay, welcome to my demo for my game for the second assignment. And I'm going to speed through this because this is much harder to get in 10 minutes than I thought. So, my game is a simple game where you're a jetpack man and you have to avoid falling meteors. You've got 3 lives per game. You lose those 3 lives, then you can play another game if you want. It's going to give you statistics at the end, what your highest score was across your 3 games. So I'm just going to jump into the game, and then I can talk more about it. So as you can see, it says welcome to Meteoric Rise, and it asks us to enter number of journeys you'd like to make. I'm going to put in 2, and I'm going to press OK. Input my name. Okay, and now I'm controlling my jetpack man. Okay, now I already collided with Meteor there. That's 1 life gone. So as you can see, also when I'm directing my man, he's got a little jetpack animation, flames coming out. I'm just directing him here with the directional arrows. Display window, I can't go to the far left, stops me. Same with far right. Boundaries, same at the top. So if I try to go to the top, okay, which I didn't, I died. So that's me if I want to go on my next journey, and it resets me. And if I fall to the bottom, it also resets me because I go out of bounds. I'll try to go to the top. I've died again. So those are my two games done. And yeah, so pretty much if I had gotten to the top, there's also a boundary up there. So I'm just going to run through my code now. So on my main Meteoric Rise page here, I've got so importing my Java Swing, so I can set up the framework for dialog boxes and user input. Here I've got my 3 user-defined classes, man, meteor, player, and the respective objects. The meteor is going to be an object array. Check myself the time. So here I've got I've got all my variables that I'm going to need to make the game a game and not a dynamic animation, I guess. So we've got our lives lost, our score, our max lives per game, max number of games played. I've also got this variable here, which I need to incorporate into my scores and pick up when the meteors reach the bottom of the display window and add that to the score. So in my setup, I've got my set up my display window. I've got my constructor for my man. I've got my constructor for my object array, which is going to have 12 elements in it. I've also got this bespoke set meteors function, which I'll get to a bit later. Here's my max number of games, which is setting up the dialog boxes to enter the number of journeys and to input the player's name. So in my draw, I've got my background. I've got this loop that is going to create a star effect to run in the background. So here we've got methods that I have to dive into my man object to get. So we've got our display function here, and we've got our move function, which I'll get to a bit later when we move into that class. Here I've got a loop, which is it's going to take the display function from my meteors object array, and also this falling meteor function from my object array. And here I've got a loop which is going to help me increment the score when the meteors reach the end of the display window. So I've got meteor y equals to so the y coordinates of the object array, and then the score is going to be equal to my variable score plus my score register variable. Okay, so my if function, I've got if collision and out of bounds are both equal to true. Both of these bespoke functions I've set up. then we're going to construct a new man and we're going to increment lives lost. If the lives lost is less than the max lives per game, then we display the man again, so we've set him. If that's not the case, then we're going to add the score to the score array for the player object, and then we're going to increment the number of games played, and we're going to reset the meteors with the set meteor function, which is down a bit further down the page. If the number of games played is less than the max number of games, then we're going to set up our dialog box to tell us that the game is over and give us a score and ask us if we'd like to go on our next journey. If we say yes, then it's going to reset the game, we stay playing. If we say no, then the journey over function kicks in, which is going to give our statistics at the end. So here's another function here, reset game, which actually is here. If you choose yes, then it's going to run that function and reset the game. So here's my journey over function, which is just going to give us our stats at the end of the game, or after playing the amount of games we chose at the start, and then we exit out of the game. So down here you can see I've got my collision function. So it's going to take the absolute value of the man's x position, x coordinate, and the meteor's object or x coordinate, and if that's within 30 pixels, and also the y coordinates for both are the same, then it's going to return collision being true. Out of bounds, so that's pretty much if our man goes outside the height plus 30, then he's out of bounds. Our set meteors, so it's a loop and it's going to create two waves, one that starts a bit further up on the y-axis than the other. So if I jump into my classes quite quickly, I've got my man class, and we've got the our private parameters, and then I've got my public getters here somewhere. So yep, they're my two getters that I've used. You can see I've got a draw man function here to draw my man, draw flames. So this is for controlling my man, an if function. I'm going to jump into meteor here quickly. So I've got my private parameters and setting up my meteor constructor, and then I've overloaded it here. So I've got my falling meteor function to make the meteors descend down the screen. Okay, and then I've got my display function, which is going to call the draw meteor function. My getters here is my draw meteor. Put in a loop here to create the trailing debris effect on the meteors. Private helper method here to reset the meteors when needed. So if we jump into my player class here, I've got my string that I'll need for my player name. I've got my scores array. I've got my count variable, and I've got this constructor here. Take in my player name and the number of games into the array. This constructor here to add in my score and increment the count, and this is for my high score. Okay, push for time here. Okay, and I've got my setter here, so it's going to allow me to set the player name in the main window, and then I've got my toString method. So that's pretty much my game. I think I've got like 6 seconds left. So yeah, cheers.